Listen carefully. Stop for a moment. Before you decide anything, watch this. This story didn't start today. It didn't begin with ticket sales, or tour dates, or sold-out stadiums. Something here doesn't add up. And the more you look at it, the harder it is to ignore. PNAHAN PNONTON 2060 DTIK. Pay attention to what happened next. Because this part matters more than people think. Don't miss this detail. What you're about to hear changes how this entire tour is being seen. Not as a celebration. Not as a comeback. But as the moment an old wound quietly reopened. Focus and ARAHCERITA, MENIT 14. Focus on this part. BTS announced their world tour after completing military service. For many fans, it felt like a long-awaited reunion. Years of waiting. Years of silence. Years of absence. The world expected one thing. Unity. Celebration. Relief. But something else surfaced instead. A conversation that never truly ended. A boycott movement that many assumed had faded away. Look at this closely. For over 2 years, a section of the fandom had been calling for a boycott tied to corporate decisions, management controversies, and broader ethical concerns. It was loud at first, then quieter, then almost invisible. Most people believed it was over. But it was. This wasn't a coincidence. The tour didn't create the rift. It exposed it. PNGN, see right. Ticket sales opened. Servers crashed. Stadiums sold out. Social media filled with screenshots, confirmations, excitement. But right alongside that joy, something else appeared. Accusations. Questions. Disappointment. Some fans asked a simple question. If the boycott was real, why is this selling out? Others asked a harder one. If this tour succeeds, did the boycott ever matter? Here, what most people overlooked. The boycott was never one unified movement. It was fragmented. Different reasons. Different limits. Different definitions of participation. Some refused merchandise. Some avoided albums. Some drew the line at concerts. And some never stopped supporting BTS at all. Pause EMOSI, SATLAH FAKTA BERAT. Pause for a moment. Let that sink in. Sit with that for a second. Think about this carefully. A fandom known for unity was quietly split by expectations that were never agreed upon. JMBEN, TRNSISIHALUS. But that wasn't the end. What came next changed the direction. And this is where it turns. As tour footage spread online, so did criticism. Not from outsiders. From within. That's when everything shifted. PNEKNAN and KONFLK. This is where the pressure built. Fans began calling each other hypocrites. Some said buying tickets betrayed the cause. Others argued that punishing the artists made no sense. The criticism didn't stop. The silence became louder. Artists stayed silent. The company stayed silent. And in that silence, people filled the gaps with their own conclusions. Doubt started to take over. Was supporting BTS the same as supporting corporate decisions? Was abstaining from the tour an act of principle or an empty gesture? No one could agree. And that disagreement became the real story. PNGMBNJN, LANGUTN. Online timelines split into sides. Celebration posts met backlash. Boycott reminders met resistance. Some fans felt judged for attending concerts they had waited years to see. Others felt erased for holding on to concerns that were never addressed. This wasn't just about money. It was about identity. About what it means to be a fan. About where loyalty begins and where responsibility ends. The tour didn't cause the conflict. It forced a decision people had been avoiding. MOMEN PREBHAN WHYBE ADA. This is the moment everything changed. When it became clear the boycott could not stop the tour, not even slow it down. Nothing was the same after this. There was no going back. Because once the concerts happened, the question was no longer, should we boycott? It became, what does this boycott actually mean? And that question had no simple answer. MENUGU, KLMKS/payoff. Now everything makes sense. This explains why the debate felt so emotional. Why it refused to die down. The truth finally caught up. The rift was never about BTS alone. It was about expectations placed on artists who symbolize more than music. About fans projecting values, frustrations, and hopes onto a group that never claimed to represent all of them. The world tour became a mirror. And not everyone liked what they saw. KLMKS, emosawanel. Some fans chose joy. Some chose restraint. Some chose silence. And none of them were fully wrong. Because the problem wasn't disagreement. It was the assumption that there was only one correct way to care. PNUTUP, emosawanel. The truth didn't need noise. It only needed time. And that was enough. But time has a way of revealing what emotions try to hide. As the tour continued, patterns began to emerge. Some shows sold out instantly. Others moved slower. Online, people tried to use numbers as proof. Proof that the boycott failed. Or proof that it mattered. But numbers alone couldn't explain what was really happening. Because this wasn't a financial argument anymore. It was personal. For some fans, attending the tour felt like reclaiming something they had lost. Years without group performances. Years of waiting through uncertainty. They didn't see tickets as money. They saw them as closure. For others, refusing to attend felt just as personal. They believed that withholding support was the only language corporations understand. Two choices. Both emotional. Both deeply human. And here's the part rarely acknowledged. Many fans were stuck in the middle. Quiet. Undecided. Watching both sides argue while feeling conflicted themselves. They didn't post. They didn't announce their decisions. They simply carried the weight of it alone. This wasn't a loud boycott. It was a silent fracture. As weeks passed, the narrative hardened. Labels were assigned. Real fans. Fake fans. Corporate defenders. Performative activists. The language became sharper. Less forgiving. The fandom that once prided itself on empathy began mirroring the very hostility it criticized. And no one paused to ask what that was doing to the community itself. Pause here for a moment. Let that sit. A movement meant to challenge power structures ended up turning inward. Not against a company, but against each other. The irony was impossible to miss. BTS's music has long spoken about unity, healing, and understanding. Yet their return to the world stage became the backdrop for division. Not because of anything they said, but because of everything left unsaid. Silence became a canvas, and everyone painted their own meaning onto it. Then came the think pieces. Threads, long posts, videos dissecting intentions. Some demanded statements. Others warned against forcing artists into political positions. The debate expanded beyond the tour itself. It became a larger question about modern fandoms, about where art ends and accountability begins. This is where the story deepens. Because BTS has always existed at a crossroads. Global icons, yet deeply human. Artists, yet symbols. Every action magnified. Every silence interpreted. The world tour didn't create these expectations. It collided with them. Behind the scenes, nothing visibly changed. No announcements. No clarifications. The tour continued as planned. And that continuity forced fans to confront a difficult reality. Movements without consensus rarely move anything at all. They fragment, they exhaust, and eventually they redefine themselves. This is the moment many didn't expect, when the boycott stopped being about pressure and started becoming about identity. People weren't asking, does this work? They were asking, who am I if I participate? Or, who am I if I do? That question lingered longer than any hashtag. As the final dates approached, something subtle happened. The noise softened. Not because the issue was resolved, but because fatigue set in. Arguments repeated themselves. Positions stayed fixed. And slowly, the urgency faded. Not with resolution, but with acceptance. Nothing was the same after this. The fandom didn't break, but it changed. Lines became clearer. Expectations more cautious. Blind unity replaced with quieter realism. People learned that loving something doesn't always mean agreeing on how to protect it. And here's the truth that finally surfaced. The boycott didn't fail. And it didn't succeed. It revealed something more uncomfortable. That fandoms are not monoliths. They are collections of individuals navigating values, emotions, and limits in real time. The tour didn't end the debate. It forced it out into the open. Now everything truly makes sense. Why the reaction felt disproportionate. Why emotions ran so high. Why people took it personally. Because this was never just about concerts. It was about agency. About being heard. About deciding what support really means in a world where art and commerce are inseparable. And maybe that's why this rift felt unexpected. Not because it was new, but because it could no longer be ignored. In the end, no statement came. No definitive answer settled the debate. Life moved on. Music played. Crowds sang. Others stayed away. And all of it existed at the same time. The truth didn't need noise. It didn't need sides. It only needed time. And that was enough.